Okay, well, hi everybody. This is the first time I've done a video for Substack. I've had a couple things on YouTube, but but I hardly ever use YouTube. I should, you know, what I should be doing is loading edited versions of my classes onto YouTube and monetizing them and making vast sums of money, but somehow I never get around to doing it. Um, what I want, but this is easy, I will do this today and then maybe I'll do some more. But the reason I'm primarily motivated to do a little video for you all here now today um, is to put is it's going to be short, is just to put the current classes that I'm teaching on, that are advertised on my Substack, that I'm teaching online, in some sort of broader context, and thereby, of course, maybe get a few more people interested. We're going to be doing my third book after Prophecy starting next Tuesday, and as of right now, I have three people signed up, and I will do it for three. I would do it for one. But it's sort of nicer to have a few more. And in the past, I've had 20, 30 people for these classes. And, I mean, of course, I enjoy the money. And again, I put it towards good causes. But I actually think this is pretty important stuff. And I know for fact that it's important to some of you. And there is a number of people who have followed me all these years. I've been teaching online for 7 years. I just checked since 2019, on and off. But I didn't count how many classes, quite a few, really. And during all that time, up until just a couple, 3, 4 months ago, I never used my own books as texts. And people had asked when I was going to do that. And for reasons that I rather understand now, I was reluctant to do that. And that's because in the beginning, I wasn't terribly conscious of this, but I became so. I didn't feel the authority necessary to teach my own books. And the reason for that is a little hard to explain, though I think anyone who's written significantly, has written enough, will resonate with this. I was casting my imagination out ahead of me, trying to open up a realm that I could then inhabit. And to some degree, I knew that all along. But now that the books are all completed and I get to reflect on it, it's so obvious, you know. The last of my five books on Corban and the imagination and Hillman and Jung and all sorts of others. Um, Gosh, I mean, the last one was published over a decade ago, I think. Yeah. So it all is in the past. And for a variety of reasons that sometimes I will talk about, not today, I now feel as if I've sort of caught up with myself. And I can look back on the time that I spent with my intellect exploring this material. Um, I've been able to enter that world that I was sketching out. Um, and it's being super interesting to go back over the books. It's part of the transformational process, I think. So at any rate, a few months ago, it suddenly occurred to me, maybe I should teach from my own books and we'll see what's in them. Because I'm not always sure what's coming. So we did the first book, and that was fairly straightforward because the first book was The World Turned Inside Out, which was originally written as a as an attempt for me to make sense of Corbin to myself and to be as objective about it as possible. And so that's a fairly straightforward book. All of the rest of them have more of me in them on purpose. That is, I'm over the years that I wrote those books, which was 25 or so, I think. Um, I felt more and more free to depart from Corbinian orthodoxy and to move myself into the kinds of spaces that he freed up for me and by extension can free up for others. Um, and it's super interesting to reflect on those books. First one, that was easy. We just finished Green Man, which is a really good book. There's things in there that gosh, that's really good. And then there's other things where I think, yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't quite get it. So it's funny. And what we're doing in these, these readings of my books, I'm commenting on them. We're not going through paragraph by paragraph because some of it's fairly dense stuff. What I'm doing is commenting on my comments about Corbin, Jung, Hillman, Illich, and the imagination. And those are the primary figures that I started with, although you'll see in the Green Book, there's a whole host of other people whose work was super important to me. And particularly in the Green Man book, there's a long list of feminist theologians because I don't want to get into this now, but when I was writing the Green Man book, I was realizing that I really didn't know anything about Christianity because I wasn't raised as a Christian. And that in order to understand Corbin's very strange approach to the religions of the book, I really had to know something about Christianity. And Illich, Ivan Illich, was enormously important for me. But then also a whole host of largely feminist theologians were instrumental in getting me to understand some of the liberatory possibilities of Christianity, even outside of Corbin's read on it. Um, at any rate, so it was super interesting for me to go back through the Green Man book and find things that I was suddenly reminded of that, oh my gosh, that's right. And I'd forgotten that. And then to find other places where I now recognize that my emphases were a bit off. And there's things that I understand better now that I didn't see at all or didn't foreground in the past. So it's super interesting that way. We are about on Tuesday next week to start a run through, a commentary on After Prophecy. Honestly, I I don't know what's in here. This was first published in 2007, and it's in a second edition. And it's got some really nice chapters in it, and I don't really know what's in them. And it'll be really fun to go through and find out what I said, because the point is that it was an exploratory period for me. Here are questions which I have that are, in reading Corbin and Illich and Hillman and trying to get some useful, effective sense of what we might mean by the imaginal or imagination. This was exploratory, and it was compelled in me by forces which I do not understand. But I did do the writing. I remember these essays. Um, but I don't remember their content because the territory that I explored, I am now beyond. So it'll be super interesting. And by way of telling blowing my own horn. This is a book that James Hillman really liked. Todd Lawson, Islamic Studies at Toronto, really liked it. Jeanette Perry really liked it, and yeah, and at the time, I was really touched, but 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 even then, as much as now, I had the sense that, gosh, that's really great. I'm glad I produced a book that people are liking, but I can't really take credit for it because it just kind of happened. So that's what we're going to do starting next Tuesday. And unless something really significant happens, spiritually or intellectually, what I intend is to finish After Prophecy in, what did I decide? 5 weeks, I think, twice a week for 90 minutes. And then we'll take a break for a week, and then I'll do All the World in Icon, and then we'll take a break for a week. And by that time, it'll probably be summer, so maybe we'll take a longer break. But then I'll finish up with Imaginal Love. And then we can get back to somebody besides me. It's possible that I'll get tired of myself before then, and we'll take a break before we do, another of my books. But as I said, I'm finding it personally extremely useful. Oh, and here's the other large scale claim that I kind of want to suggest. I guess that I am thinking and experiencing that this summation, this summary view of these texts and of therefore the last 30 odd years of my life may result in my being able to articulate a loosely held vision of a psychocosmology in Corbin's terms, and that's a really useful term, um, that is adequate to me. I mean, Jung said, I'm the only Jungian. If you want a psychology, make up your own. And it's essential to understanding Corbin that he said pretty much the same thing about a vision of reality because he was a Gnostic. And your own vision in Corbin's view is going to be your own vision, and peculiar, individuated for you. It doesn't. It results not in your isolation, but in fact, just the opposite. It results in communion with others, with a means of access to relationality, which is otherwise unachievable, I think. And so I'm quite consciously working towards a final book before I die, a sort of summation of all my trials and tribulations and trying to articulate something for myself. And then to my endless surprise and delight, there are people who appreciate what I've said and are able to use it for themselves, you know? Um, and 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 I would therefore I can genuinely say I would do this for free. But I'd rather not. And that leads me to emphasize yet again that if first of all, the courses, this is about the course itself. They're always recorded. You get the recordings. You can download them and keep them forever if you want. And it also means you don't have to come live because a lot of people can't. I ended up choosing Tuesdays and Thursdays at 4 o'clock because it's convenient to me, because there was no other rationale that would bring in people from England and Australia and California. And, so I have them when I have them. And so that is entirely flexible. And the other thing that's flexible is if you can't afford them, and I don't think that they're expensive particularly, But if you can't afford them, let me know. And I liberally shower people with scholarships, which means you don't pay full price. I prefer it when you do. um, but but it's okay if you can't. I would rather have interested people there than not. I mean it's important to me. Is there anything else I want to say? Um, you know, I used to do a podcast which didn't have the video thing. And I did that for several years until I got really tired of A, talking to myself. Oh, this is the point I want to make. And B, not knowing who was in the audience. So I gave up the podcast. And it's after that that I started doing the online teaching with videos and having a class list and all that sort of thing. The other thing that is really super, super important, and I'm not yet sure how I'm going to handle it, but as I mature in my quest to be a human being, um, again, I'm more and more aware of something that I've been aware of all along, which is that as much as I talk about community and relationality in the courses, it's pretty much me talking for 90 minutes. So it's me monologuing and thinking out loud. And that's a way of I love it, frankly. I'm not ashamed at all of saying that. I love doing it because it's a really lovely way of exploring the ideas that I'm playing with. That being said, when I can coax questions out of the audience, it's always helpful and sometimes truly revelatory because you get caught in your own little bubble and you don't realize what a jerk you're being. you know and so I really, as I said in the last class last week, I really want to make some sort of formal structure, so that people will come knowing that it is their job to say something, because I don't like to surprise people. Because long ago, I was one of those recluses in the back of every class who would never say anything. And I respect and even admire that. And so I don't like to put people on the spot. But I would like to provide a structured opportunity for students to say something, to ask questions, make a comment. And we may do that beginning next Tuesday by me promising to stop talking after 60 minutes rather than going the whole 90, and waiting long enough to see if there are people who would like to begin to speak. And if not, I can always fill the dead space with more thinking. Um, and we may go beyond that. I may offer, a once a week supplemental opportunity for people to come, those who can come live, that would be a discussion, because though, though it's not evident on the basis of my online teaching, I'm pretty good at listening to people in a small class setting and letting people discuss, and I like it a lot. So I do intend that. Um, so that's what we're going to do, starting next Tuesday. And if any of that sounds of interest to you, whether you know my books or not, if you're interested in, and here's one more pitch, if you're interested in an approach to reality or a set of approaches to reality which run counter to or counter to the dominant mode of understanding reality of contemporary Western technological civilization, and to toss those ideas around, then this would be your place. And I always find it, I mean, sometimes it goes off wrong a little bit, but I always find it useful and interesting, and I know other people do too sometimes. That's all I have to say today. I'm not even going to edit this, so if you lasted right to the end here, God bless you. And if you want to sign up, I'll put it at the bottom of this video, I think. And thanks for listening. I really appreciate it.